Enough self-righteousness. Try freedom. Authenticity Radio.
And now, your host, who has the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper, Slade Suter.
Yeah, he, this court is now in session. Peace, brother.
Uh-oh, here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Everybody know that he is the judge.
And I would like to welcome you to the Heart of Justice. This is today's program. If justice had a heart, I think we found her, and she's on Authenticity Radio. This is your host, Slade Suter. And Judge Regina-Walters joins us from Colorado Springs. She works in El Paso County Court as a judge. She is continually reaching out, creating new programs for the people that she sees in her courtroom time and time again. And so with that, Judge Regina-Walters, welcome to Authenticity Radio.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It is so nice that you've taken your time to be with us this morning, and keeping that in mind, I know that you're ready to go into court, and for our time and your time with us this morning is finite. So could you please just give us a quick synopsis of what brought you on the road to become a judge in the first place?
I've lived in Colorado Springs since I was about 13. This is where my home and my heart is. I left to go to law school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And when I returned to Colorado Springs, I was in private practice for about a year, and it just killed me to ask people who were down and out for money. And so it was clear to me private practice was not my forte. And so I joined the public defender's office, which I enjoyed very much, and I had a juvenile court, a felony court, and a county court.
Wow.
So the county court was primarily domestic violence and driving under the influence cases. The felony court is anything that you could go to prison for, so anything as minor as habitual traffic offender and as serious as first-degree murder. And I had a juvenile court, and my passion really lie with the juveniles. I became very active in trying juvenile cases and trying to advocate for youth. And as a result of that, a number of judges asked me to apply to be a juvenile magistrate. And in Colorado, a magistrate does everything that a judge does, with the exception of jury trials, and there's two other exceptions: no death penalty and no ruling on constitutionality of laws. Mm-hmm. But I was asked to become a juvenile magistrate. So in 1987, I applied when an opening became available, and I didn't get the job. So I was devastated. But a month later, another opening came available, and I did get the job. And so for 21 years, I was a juvenile magistrate, which I adored. I went to work every day feeling as if it was a new opportunity to save the world and assist youth and assist the adults involved in their lives. And then in 2008, so I was on the bench for 21 years. In 2008, there came a day when I knew I couldn't do juvenile anymore. And there was a 5-week period of time in May of 2008 where there were so many cases, 7 cases of children who either died as a result of child abuse or were so profoundly disabled by child abuse that they would have a hard time making it in life. And at that point, that day I knew that 21 years was long enough to deal with dead babies, incest cases, and failed adoptions. I knew I couldn't do it anymore. But up until that day, it was the best job in the world. And then that immediately after, there became a county court position available. And so now I am a county court judge, and I do primarily driving under the influence cases and domestic violence cases, but I continue to be a social activist in our community. And I think that I the influence that I had as a juvenile magistrate and the work that I'm doing as a county court judge continue to help mold Colorado Springs or help improve Colorado Springs.
Could you go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Ask me a question, because otherwise I'll just talk.
Okay. So anyway, I would like to talk about a program that you helped design. It was something in the lines of placing the kids back into the family, reuniting the family rather than separating them as the court has done in the past. Could you share some insight on what is this program?
Sure. In 2001, the Department of Human Services, the bench, meaning me as the representative of the bench, and Savio Youth Services began the Family Treatment Drug Court in Colorado Springs. And we were the first in the nation that was a placement prevention program as opposed to a reunification program. So let me describe what led up to that. More than 80% of the cases that came before the court were cases involving more than 80% of the dependency and neglect cases that came before the court involved some kind of parental substance abuse, alcoholism, drug addiction, or the episode that resulted in the child abuse was caused by parental substance abuse. Yeah. Well, most of those kids got removed from their home. And what we were doing was we were removing them from their home. Those children who go into foster care are less likely to be reunified with their parents for a number of reasons. One is that the number one predictor for success in a treatment plan, so if you have a dependency and neglect case, the parents are required to participate in a treatment plan to rehabilitate them as a parent. The number one predictor of success of a treatment plan is contact with the children. And what we were doing was removing children from the home. Parents would get so despondent that they wouldn't have contact with their children, or they would increase their use. And originally what we would say is you have to have 3 clean UAs before you could see your analysis for drugs, before you can see your children. Well, those children had seen their parents under the influence for years. And the parents were now not only despondent about removal of their children, but free to use more frequently because their kids weren't around. I'm being kind of disorganized here. So the idea that I want to convey to you is that what we were doing was making it unlikely that parents would succeed in their treatment plans, in part because they didn't have contact with their kids. So those children were ending up in stranger adoption, and we were paying the cost of those adoptions. They were subsidized adoptions, and they frequently failed, and children spent the rest of their lives trying to run home to those parents from whom they'd been separated. So we were subsidizing adoptions. Those adoptions were frequently but not always failing, and the kids were not thriving because in reality 1 in 3 children who go to foster care are abused in foster care, sexually or physically abused in foster care. So
oh dear.
More than 80% of our terminations of parental rights involved substance abusing parents. So 80% of our cases involved substance abuse, and 80% of our terminations involved parental substance abuse. So under my direction, we started the Family Treatment Drug Court in 2001. And the criterion for that court was that your child was going to be placed in foster care today as a result of your parental substance abuse unless you agreed to participate in the Family Treatment Drug Court. And participating in the Family Treatment Drug Court meant that you had people in your business all the time. It's a family preservation model, so children are not removed from the home. It's a model where you send professionals in the home who are teaching people how to parent. You have significant sobriety monitoring, and we had tremendous success. More than, well, I think that the last data I saw was that only 1% of those children who have been through the family treatment drug court have ended up in an adoption with a stranger, as opposed to at home with their parents or with family members.
Wow.
Even though you knew you were going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the success was, oh my gosh, you have 182 days of sobriety and 190 days of, we have one mother who, one of the things that we celebrated was celibacy. 190 days of celibacy and 182 days of sobriety, because her mechanism for getting more drugs was always to sell her body. Mm-hmm. And so we had lots of things to celebrate in that court. When I became a county court judge, that court was taken over by it's been a succession of magistrates. Right now, Jamie Vigil is the magistrate who runs that court, and it continues to be tremendously successful. Other drug courts are, as I've indicated, reunification programs. So the children are in fact removed, and then the parents have to earn them back. And
mm-hmm.
we have significantly more success than those programs have. But there is an element of danger to leaving children in homes with parents who we know may relapse or abuse substances.
Mm-hmm.
And many jurisdictions are unwilling to take that risk.
Well, yeah, there's risks involved.
Yeah.
And this is just one of your programs.
This is just one program, yes.
I just wanted to say to our listeners that Judge Regina has spearheaded and begun or participated in so many programs. And she has won so many awards that if she were to wear them all, she would have to have lapels larger than Nebraska. and you have another program called Educating Children of Color, and it's coming up this December or January in Colorado. And I believe this is your 6th year of running this. Is that true?
Oh, no, we're getting ready for our 8th.
Oh, wow, the 8th. Okay.
Yes.
Well, then how did you start educating, how did you start this, educating children of color?
All right. In 1995, so I had already been on the bench for 8 years, I went to a conference in Reno, Nevada for juvenile judges on disproportionate minority confinement. So the idea that kids of color are more likely to end up in prison or in detention in the juvenile court than their white peers.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to this conference, and I was relatively young for a judge,
mm-hmm.
a female, which was less usual than it is now for a judge.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sea of old white men, I was feeling really sanctimonious because I believed that I treated everybody in my courtroom the same, regardless of race or ethnicity. And I was there for 3 days, and I realized that I was contributing to the problem. I controlled the detention center. I made the determination of who stayed and who left. In terms of detention. And at that time, we had a significant issue with crack cocaine. And I realized that if you were a black male, so a black male under the age of 18, and you came into the detention center on crack cocaine charges, I assumed that you were dealing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't get the substance abuse evaluation, you didn't get treatment, and you didn't get out of detention. If you were a white male under the age of 18 with the exact same charges,
mm-hmm.
I assumed that you were using drugs instead of dealing drugs, and you got a substance abuse evaluation, you got treatment, and you got out of detention. Mm-hmm. And I was completely unaware that I was doing that.
So what did you do after you made this discovery of your assumption?
So I came back to Colorado Springs, and I started the 4th Judicial District Disproportionate Minority Confinement Task Force.
Wow, that's a large acronym.
Yes, it is. I assembled a group of people to begin looking directly at the issue of